form. Just back from a holiday. We got over the minor technical difficulties there to start for both of us.
There's always technical difficulties for me. I can't even say difficulties today. Peter, how are you?
Good. How are you? You're getting back into it now after a little few days away.
Yes, I was in Portugal for 10 days. We got back last Thursday, but I was actually working. I don't know how I did it, but I was actually had a client at 8:30 Friday morning. So that was straight back into it. And then, so that felt like it was Monday for me then. And then we were working again on Saturday and then day off Sunday. And then I had a couple of clients, 3 clients now this morning. So we're fully back into the swing of things.
So there was no holiday blues then, I assume. No time for it.
No, there wasn't time. No. Look, I only work with people I like anyway, so it's it's fine. I enjoy it, so there's no holiday blues anyway. We were actually saying that coming back from holidays that like Kira, I asked Kira like, are you like looking forward to going home? Or are you dreading going home or whatever? And I said like, or she said no, and I said the same. Like if I was staying on for another week, I would have been happy. If I was coming home today, I would have been happy. It just, I think if you hate your life, then a holiday is like an escape rather than just a holiday.
Yeah, 100%. So then the question that I wanted to pose to you, is it mainly all online then? Are you taking any in-person clients anymore? Or just the odd one or two here or there?
I have a few sneaky ones, but I'm not advertising that I'm taking people. So yeah, I three this morning, one online, girl in Hong Kong, and then I'd a GA player this morning who needs to get his hammy right for this weekend, and then I had Kate Veal, who's a Irish race walker. So she's kind of putting plans in place for the next 3 years, for the next Olympics hopefully, and then more kind of for the next year as well, so World Championships and stuff next year. So I'm going to be working with her. I think we were working together for the last kind of 2 years, 18 months probably, but going to be working more closely with her now over the next year at least, I think.
It's a lot of load that the race walkers will go through in a week, because I had Colin Griffin on about a month ago now at this stage, and he was just talking us through how many Ks he'd get through in a week. Now he's transitioned over to running, but it's just incredible. And the walking form, if that's a term, I suppose, that they have to go through is so abnormal that they have to train their bodies to be able to tolerate that unique demand, I suppose, because Colin is quite tall. So he was talking about how biomechanically he really struggled to not get the red flags or the red cards the whole way through, because he was just so tall, and you had to, and it wasn't even you know the way they have to keep one foot on the floor. It was the fact that you had to have no bend in your knee when you hit the ground. And we were just talking about, because he's so tall, maybe it was his body kind of protecting himself subconsciously, I suppose, from that repetitive load.
My like half my work with Kate last year and stuff was teaching her to bend her knee, not while walking, but like while doing other things. So like when she first came to me, she had like a fairly nasty case of osteitis pubis and hamstring tendinopathy, and has some hip stuff that she's always working around. Not to go into too much detail, but like the osteitis pubis and that went away, and like she had it for years, and it went away in like 2 weeks when we just started bending her knees more. It's just like give your hamstring a job to do here when you bend your knee. Give your quads a job to do. Stop like cranking on the pelvis all the time, you know. So yeah, people were trying to do specific things for that specific area in those tissues. I was like, oh, just bend your knees a little bit. So yeah, but it's a very unique sport.
And give them more movement options, I suppose, and then the more options that they have, then the less likely they are, I suppose, to run into a chronic injury. Is that a good way of summing it up, I suppose, or is that too short of a soundbite?
It is for most sports. Like, you're just giving people the things that they maybe don't have. So like it like living in knee extension or moving in quickly into knee extension is fine. It might be a sprinter might do it sometimes as well, or stuff like that. But like when they're in the gym, you don't want them doing it. Like when they're walking around their life or the world, you don't want to doing it. You don't want them standing up off the toilet seat doing that, or, you know, like, just want to give them I don't know, is variability the right word? Like it is and it isn't, like, because variability means, right, I have the ability to do, my joints can do all different things and move into different positions and all that stuff. But the system isn't interested in variability in that way, because it will just find the motor pattern that applies most frequently or most commonly to every other movement that I can do. So I just keep choosing that movement pattern, even though, like, even so, if I do a front squat, I do a back squat, I do a walk, I go up the stairs, like, it will choose the same movement pattern pretty much to do all the time. So it's not even about variability, it's changing the movement pattern, I think, or what the brain and the not the reflexes, but what the anatomy is trying to do all the time. Coordination is the word. Change the coordinative aspects of it, I suppose.
Yeah, the body will always go to the path of least resistance, exactly. I suppose.
Yeah.
But re-ingraining a motor pattern or retraining it is quite complex and quite difficult to do. But I suppose you've been having great success in the last while. And as you said, 2 weeks there with Kate, like, and you'd made some gains. Now that might have been not, you mightn't have been able to see those movement. Well, I wouldn't have been able to see those movement differences. You probably would, but how are you having such great impact with people so quickly?
Well, that's just one thing with Kate. That wasn't even the main thing we were working on. That just went away as a result of working on some other stuff. But it's not, when you change your perspective on the body in terms of everything is strength and flexibility, when you change your perspective away from that, then you can get massive changes in minutes, because you're just looking at you're looking at a system that has adapted over time, and we are a dynamic system. Our human being is a dynamic system, and that can change in minutes. It's the coolest thing. If you introduce a movement into someone's body that they haven't been able to do, or the brain is locked away, or it just wouldn't allow you to access, and suddenly a tissue loads in a different way or coordinates with other tissues in a different way, and like, you just think about it as like light bulbs going off throughout the body, and this pathway that we kind of ignored is firing again. I don't like the word firing, but I'm going to use it anyway. Like, how can it not change instantly in that regard? If I just brought awareness to a part of your foot that can move and like interact with the floor differently, then now suddenly you go for a walk and every single footstep is a millimeter different at the foot, which means it's a millimeter different at the knee, the hip, the spine, the shoulder, the jaw, every other joint in your body. So when you look at it that way, how could it not be? How can you not get changes quickly?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. But what I'm impressed with more so, like, everybody interviews you and talks about your fantastic knowledge in terms of biomechanical perspective and your anatomy and all that kind of science stuff. But in the actual coaching side of it, to elicit that change, your verbal cueing has to be very, very good. So transitioning...
Roxy's giving out to me here. She's asked me to throw her teddy. Apologies. Sorry, continue.
Give her some verbal cueing to head off. But what I was just wondering was, transitioning from mainly in person to mainly online, and I know it was kind of COVID enforced, did you find that your verbal cueing had to improve and you had to adapt your coaching very, very quickly?
Well, I was doing online before anyway. Basically, I remember like 2 years even before COVID, probably 18 months at least, someone had asked me on Instagram, wrote to me, do you do sessions online? And I said, yeah. So apologies to that person, it was the first one. But yes, I did. Yeah. So I don't think I was very conscious about like it is different and stuff. I don't think I was super conscious about, right, here's what I need to do to be better at this. I just think, like anything, it's just practice, like, and you just start to learn over time what does work and what doesn't work. I just try to get more and more clear about what it is I'm seeing with the person in front of me, what it is that I'm trying to change, or what it is that we're trying to work on. And then I just guess over time, you just learn to use words that tend to work with people, and then if they don't work, then I use other words that tend to work. And then if they don't work, I'll push my desk out of the way and try and show them. But I very rarely have to do that. And I did try and do that purposely in the beginning, that I'm not going to show people. I'm going to try and talk them through it. And that was good. But for the most part, you just need to slow down and stop trying to rush things. And I think that's scary for some people, because they don't know what they're trying to really work on. They don't, like, their assessment isn't very good and they can't really see. So they're like, okay, I need to try 20 things in this session now, and I will find a few things and then off you go. But I think not that everything is a guess. Like, it's always a guess when you're working with a human, but sometimes it's more educated guess, and you just slow down. And I have a decent idea of what I want to work on even before I see them moving. When I just hear it, like if I do a session with you, I hear you talk, and I'm like, okay, like I have a fairly good idea of what's going on here, or a decent idea. And when you narrow things down, you have more time to work on the things that matter, and then I can take my time and coach you through it and leave you make a mistake, leave you get it wrong. I don't want it to be perfect first time. I just, okay, good, like, but try this time, or add in, or just think about this little thing, or put that book beside your knee, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I was just interested because obviously when you're coaching, you run into people who are more kind of auditory or more visual learners, and then you run into people that are neither as well. So it can be quite tough when I'm in person to work with those type of people and get them to achieve the movement outcome that I kind of want them to. So I was wondering, when you're on the other side of the screen, how do you deal with that when, like, the verbal cueing isn't working, but you just said you moved the desk out of the way and you might demonstrate a little bit? And do you ever run into issues that neither of those are working?
No, I don't think so. Maybe I just don't see that. Maybe they just turn off the screen and they're like, that was shit. But I don't think so. I don't know. I don't like to box. Like, I'm often asked, what way do you learn? And I'm like, I don't know what way I learn. I might be an auditory learner listening to one person, and I hear another person like not listen to anything they say. So I don't know, is it that clean cut? Like, I just think it depends on the voice and the tone you're using and how the words you're using. I think everyone is probably an auditory listener if you can connect with them in that way, or learner, should I say. So yeah, and if it's not working, it's probably like the wrong movement that I'm trying to give them. That's the problem. It's the wrong movement altogether, and their body just actually can't access that movement at the time. And I'm just trying to fit a round peg, or whatever the square peg
hole,
into a round hole.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah, it's just interesting. I do find, like, it's very rare, as you said, and there's no black and white. Like, it's a very gray area. Like, some verbal cues that work with someone and they won't work with another person, and you can't box them in. But I do find with the people that aren't able to kind of, well, it's not that they're not able, because it's on me if it's not working, on my coaching. That's the way that I would take it. But typically then, if they do get that movement and you say, yes, that was it, then they just have it, because they're more of a learn by doing kind of person. So the second they get it, they've got it. And then I'm like, thank God I can stop worrying about this.
But everyone is a learn by do. Everyone, even if they don't think they are. That's why some coaches are terrible, because they never did it. They read it in a book, they saw it in a course, then they went and taught it themselves, and they never did it. And like, people look at me and say, he's not the best looking athlete, or like he's put on a few pounds over COVID. But I guarantee you, at that I taught, or at that I tried it, and I probably had to try it 400 times more than anyone else, because my body has been such a mess in the past that, like, I have to slow down, and I have to understand something, and I have to be able to, my body just won't let me do it if I don't. So everyone is a learn by doing. Some people can't put their ego aside to actually slow down and do it.
That's what I was going to say, was because you've been so crocked in the past, if that's a good way of putting it, you've ran into all these problems. So you can connect with the person across the camera, I suppose, a lot easier, because I know I've been through it, I've dealt with it, and this worked for me. It might not work for you, but We're going to see if it'll work for you, and then if it doesn't work, then we just throw it out and we'll try something else. But that's the game. Like, that's coaching, I suppose. That's how you do it.
Trial and error. It's cool. And when you do look at people in the as a system that can adapt quickly kind of way, it allows your trial and error. It just allows you to fail a lot faster. Now, that's not always the case. Like, it doesn't always have to be the case. Like, someone, I try not to be, obviously I am biased, but I try not to be approaching a session like that. Like today, like a session with someone online, like my answer was, you need to do more seated calf raises, more tibialis work, more leg extensions, and more hamstring curls. And like, I'm not going to see a change in their movement based on prescribing those 4 movements. Like, it's going to take 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks to start to build some strength and like tissue quality around there. So like, I try not to be biased in that regard, but you can fail much faster when you understand that actually I'm dealing with a nervous system here that can adapt quickly. And if I don't see changes, if I'm trying to change range of motion, especially passive range of motion, if I'm trying to change passive range of motion and it doesn't change in minutes, that's probably the wrong movement.
That's, as you said, though, you've learned all these things over time. And obviously the reason you transition more online, well, not obvious, I suppose, but it is more scalable. You can see more people throughout the day. It's less taxing for you. But is there anything that you miss from the in-person, or are you getting enough in-person now with those few clients that do come into you?
I would say the online is more taxing. On the screen, you have to be on like 100% for the entire session. Like, whereas, like I was doing a couple of sessions there in person, and I can just sit on like the physio table while they're doing a few squats, and I'm just watching them saying, yep, good, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas online, like, you have to properly watch, or you won't pick up the little details that you'd pick up just by kind of relaxing in another session. So it's definitely harder, and it's harder for me because I'm sitting down, I'm staring at a screen, I'm not moving, and like harder on my body, definitely the online sessions. But yeah, the in-person is more fun. Like, it is more fun. It's more interactive. It's more fun. You pick up more. But for me, it's better for someone who works online and is willing to put into work. It's not better. They get. I don't think so. You've been on the other end of it. I don't think the results are much better. Like, I don't know.
I think it gives you more freedom is the thing that is the massive thing. Like, you can connect with anybody, as you said, all over the world at whatever time suits both you and them, rather than this is the only time that we can book a slot in this specific gym or at this specific time, and we have to be there at that time every week. So it allows a little bit more freedom that way, and it is more scalable from a business perspective as well. You can help more people. But I am interested there in you saying just about you sitting down for long hours a day and being so online, and you are a very obsessive individual, as I am as well, I suppose, about growing your business and pushing it and improving the service and improving the quality of everything you're doing. So from that, and from being a self-professed banged up athlete before, do you ever run into any chronic issues yourself, and how do you deal with them?
I don't have like joint pain or anything like that. I haven't had anything like that for a while, and I think the reason for that is that I'm able to relax better now. Just let go. Like, I have chronic issues in terms of I am always dealing with the repercussions of what has happened in the past. There is no doubt about that. Like, when you have between probably 6 to 8 concussions, pretty heavy concussions, patellar tendinopathy for 10 years, Achilles tendinopathy for 6 years, like serious hip issues. I'm always going to deal with those repercussions, but it's not in pain. It's in my like movement quality and the things that I can do. I can do anything I want in the gym, but some things won't leave me feeling so good if I follow the traditional program, like from people. I would feel disgusting for And that would, like, I see that in a lot of my clients who follow a bad program. Like, bad is subjective, I suppose, but like they start to feel like crap 3 months later, 6 months later, while they're in the program, they start to lose range of motion. Actually, they lose it quicker than they realize, but they just start to feel, oh, hang on, my body feels not good here. I noticed that within like 24 hours in my body.
Like when you're working with teams, you have to individualize it at least a tiny bit. And it mightn't even be a whole pile, as you said, in terms of volume. Like different athletes are going to tolerate different volumes. Like, and especially as you get older, your recovering ability and your capacity to recover and go again isn't as good. So like we had an internal game yesterday, and the senior statesman was playing in midfield, and the head coach came over and asked me, what did I reckon? Did they need extra runs? This is obviously GAA. Did they need extra? I was like, no, they probably need less. And we could probably pull such and such out now at this stage. And he said, oh, well, such and such needs extra runs. And I said, well, do you know what? Just swap the guy on the inside, the younger guy, into midfield, and put the older guy inside, and then we can manipulate it, and everybody's happy because we're still getting the same amount of football. So yeah. I think even from a coaching's perspective, still it's changing a little bit, but people look on the outside and they think a strength and conditioning coach just works in the gym and we just do bench, squat, deadlift with the athletes. But it's more a consultant basis, and then you have your monitoring the athletes, and it doesn't have to be complicated. And it's the same thing that you do in a session. You ask, what's going on in your life? How stressed are you? So like, I suppose like when you take on too much as well, you get stressed and you run into chronic issues yourself. So I suppose you have Kira there to tell you to cop the fuck on as well, I guess, at times, and to relax. But what sort of processes do you go through yourself when you are getting stressed, when Man United are losing and playing shit?
I don't get stressed when Man United losing anymore. I'm Ollie out now at this stage. But I don't know. I don't let myself get to that stage. Like even when I was like probably 2 years ago or 18 months ago or even a year ago, when I was working way too much, it was just like, okay, I'm working too much. I know I'm working too much, but for now, I'm okay with that. And I know I'm not in good shape at the moment. Like, I know I'm putting on a few pounds. I know I'm like not moving as much as I should. And like my health is suffering a little bit here, but I'm willing to accept this for a certain amount of time. And that might sound weird to some people, but like most people are doing that at some period of their lives. They're just not accepting it, but they don't realize it's happening to them, but they're still doing it. I just realized, right, okay, like I don't have the systems in place in my business at the moment to deal with all this demand, but so I'm just going to suck it up and just do it. And I think when that happens, I still felt like I was in control. I was doing too much, but I was in control of what I was doing. And that I like, if for instance, I was working for someone else and I was doing all the hours I was doing, I would have been like a very unhappy human being. But I'm working for myself. I'm in control. Ultimately, I'm my own master here. Ultimately, if I just wanted to turn off the computer and not talk to anyone for a month, yeah, we wouldn't earn much money, but like that's still my choice, and that's not the choice I'm going to take, but I still could do it. So I don't allow myself to get stressed in that way.
Yeah, and you have a level of autonomy, I suppose, a high level, because you're self-employed. So, but you know what? That doesn't sound like, as you said, it might sound crazy to some people, but it doesn't sound crazy to us, because all that I would say that is a period of overreaching. Yeah, progressive overload, and then you're overreaching, and then you're going to drop off, and you're going to be way better at your job, and you're going to be more efficient as well, because you'll have the systems and the processes in place. So yeah, that's maybe a nerdy sports science head-on kind of thought pattern around it, but like that's what it is, and you've got to do that as well, especially when you're going online. You will have a period where you're just flat out, and as you said, your friends and your family won't understand why you're doing it. They'd be like, what are you doing? Just stop working. It's like, no. You don't get it. You don't get it, Mom.
So you're right. It's dead. Like, except I'm super compensated with my belly rather than my anything else. But like, but no, even that, like I knew, like, right, like now I need to get myself in shape, like, but I could have not let myself go as much as I did, but like I just did. Like I just said, right, look, fuck it, I can get fat once in my life, and then I'll just pull it back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was it. Like, so yeah, that's I think when you're in control, you understand things and you have some level of self-awareness, then you shouldn't be getting too stressed. Even at the most stressful points, we had some stressful periods. Like we had some, I delivered some webinars and stuff, and like things were not going right coming up to it, and I wasn't ready for it and stuff like that because I'm fucking procrastinator. But like even in our most stressful periods, like I still was like, I'm in control of this situation. Like,
but it's like that's always going to happen when you're doing something new, isn't it? Because it's always going to cause you stress because it is new and you haven't done it before. Like the same thing as when you first did your first online client or online session. But then the more you do it, repeated exposure to a stimulus is going to decrease the amount of stress that you experience. So like the more you do it, the better you get at it. But also that is because you don't fear it anymore, I suppose, because you know that you'll get through it eventually. Being a procrastinator is another side of it, but you're never ready for anything that you take on, really. You just have to say yes.
Yeah,
that's the Richard Branson quote, isn't it? Just say yes and figure out how to do it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Which can be good.
It's good. I think it is a good way to do it. I really do. I really do. Like, how are you going to learn the best is just throw yourself in, like, you know, just throw yourself in and learn. Now, there's dangers involved with that as well, but screw it, like.
Yeah, but I'd say the danger is that you do that for a certain amount of time, and then when you're at a stage where you're a little bit time poor, you can't spread yourself too thin. In that saying yes to absolutely everyone and everything is probably not the best thing to do forever.
No, you have to say yes if you want to do something, but you definitely have to say no to, like, I say no to a lot more things than I say yes to now.
You have to know what you want to do as well, I suppose.
Exactly.
And sometimes people don't know what they're going to do. But this chat's gone very, very deep all of a sudden. So in terms of like, we're still sticking with kind of the business model and scaling it. That's where you came up with the back end sales approach, I suppose, and the lower body basics was the first one. And well, like, did you expect it to take off the way it did?
No, I didn't. I didn't know it would sell well initially because we had like a decent following. I don't know what we had, like 5,000 people on Instagram or something maybe at that stage. But like the out of those 5,000 people, I would say my following out of the 5,000 versus another person with 5,000 was a strong following, like, if you want to call it that. And people like were basically asking us for products at the time and asking us for things. So, you know, when a lot of people start asking you for something, then, you know, like, that's a good sign.
Supply and demand, baby.
Yeah, that's a good sign. So like, no, I didn't know. I knew like, if I released this product here, after I wrote it, like, I was like, if people do this, they're going to feel really fucking good. And I didn't know how like much it would spread, or I didn't know like that some of the biggest coaches in the world would buy it and do it, and then just start like implementing a lot of that stuff with their athletes who are earning a lot of money and stuff. Like, I did not know that. I didn't think, but I did think, like, if pretty much anyone in the world does this program, they're going to feel fucking good from it. And that was like, I was confident in that. So that's a cool place to be, like, when you're releasing something that you're like very confident in the product. And I suppose it's just about being smart with your marketing and all that stuff then as well. And yeah, it's done a good job for us. And I've said, like, to myself and Kira, maybe on another podcast as well, that even if we never charged for that program, never made a penny off it, I still would have released it. Because like, some people are like, oh, should you have, like, what's the right price point and this and that for it? And I'm just like, look, if people do it, they'll get good results and they'll tell their friends and they'll like it and stuff like that. And even if we never charged a penny, we would have now, I think 6,000 people have done it. We would have 6,000 people on our email list, number one. And number two, I'd have 6,000, let's say let's say 5,000 of those are going to be like very big fans of our work after doing it. So like a lot of people will release a free ebook and try and get people to do it. We got paid for basically our free ebook, and they all told their friends as well. So like it turned out to be very successful.
I think as well, though, putting a value on it makes people value it more and adhere to it a little bit better. Like if you just threw it out free, like they might do 1 or 2 sessions and then just leave it at that. So if they invest in it, no matter what it is, if it was only €1, they'd still be invested in it. I think it would make a little bit of a difference. And then did you, when you were writing it, did you try to keep it as concise as you possibly can, the sessions and stuff? Because like obviously if it's too much, then people just aren't going to adhere to it, as we said, for a long term, or they're not going to get through it. Like, did you have a vision of how long each session should take and how that should fit into people's lifestyles so that they can do it and complete the program, I guess? Not that you can't complete it.
Yeah, I basically just tried to write it in a way that like, I'm working with a client now. They've just come to me with a lower body issue, let's say, and it's like, right, here's the things that I'll probably need to do with them in sessions 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, and that's how I wrote it. But actually I just bundled it all together rather than being like, right, first week do this, second week do that. I was just like, do it all together. Here's some regressions if you can't do that stuff. Here's a set and rep range to work through, and like keep doing it until you can get close. Like I have them targets in there for a reason. They are arbitrary targets for some of the hamstring stuff and that, but like I've kind of found over the years, like when someone can start to hit them targets, like in some of them foam roller bridges and stuff like that, like they're starting to feel really good and really strong here and demonstrate some competency around their body, and like, so that's why them targets are there. And like I do think people should work towards them, but that doesn't mean that they have to hit it in week 1. It might be just 2 legs and do it for 10 seconds or something. So I tried to make it as short and concise as possible. I tried to put in like no fluffy content or no fluffy exercises really. And it was just like, you can do, and that might sound funny to some people listen, where it's like, you wrote one program that anyone in the world can do and you're confident that they could all feel better. And like, yeah, because if they can move their hips in this way, like they're the people whose hips feel the best in my hands when I test them, and they're the people who can move the best. And these are the exercises I know to make people's hips move like that. And these are the exercises, the strength exercises that I think everyone in the world should be able to do in this way. And I'm confident that most people will feel a lot better when they do it.
But they're all commonly neglected areas as well. So
exactly.
That's why it works so well for everyone, because nobody's doing them if they're not doing them from the program, I suppose. Or if another physio hasn't robbed them off, your coach or whatever, and thrown them in. But we're all robbing, I suppose, each other's stuff.
Exactly.
With most GAA athletes now, even in season, I'm like, before last year, I wouldn't have done isometric work. And then I saw your stuff and Alex Natera's stuff. And now I keep it in throughout, and I might progress it. And it might be just like, it's such low hanging fruit in a week, because they can just do a couple of sets. And then I'm happy enough that they're getting a little bit of exposure to it. Now I have to be doing the stuff on the field right as well, like expose them to enough high speed meters and max speed work too. But like,
and they don't get that sore.
They don't get that sore, exactly. Yeah. Or tired.
They will get very sore if they do a foam roller bridge for the first time. I've had someone had DOMS for like 10 days. So that was probably too much. But like, as long as their body knows the exercise, they've got it, like they've done it a few times, you can do that as much as you want nearly in season, because they won't get that sore. And it's it's low hanging fruit. That's what it is like. But
what I was going to say as well is, like, every target is an arbitrary number. Like, we already said that everything's just educated guesswork. So whether it's based on the literature or your experience, like, it's still an educated guess of what I reckon you should be hitting. Like, even with all these strength targets that people try and hit, it's an arbitrary number. Like, as I said before, one of the young lads on the team said, what should I be trap bar deadlifting? And I said, I don't care, mate. And he was like, why not? And I said, well, as long as you put the ball over the bar, I'll stay in a job. So like, do you know what I mean? Like, so it's all arbitrary, like, but like it's good to have a goal to work towards as well, because then you are definitely trying to improve, and that's the whole goal of training, is to tolerate more training, which can be a little bit tough to understand as well. So then you can tolerate more in the game, I suppose. But then from a business and a marketing perspective, that's your background, isn't it? So like, did you have a business plan when you were, before you wrote out Lower Body Basics and rolled it out, or was it quite vague?
No, I still don't have a business plan really, but I do in my head, like in terms of, I don't know, like I have a new idea every day type of thing, but then like I don't write it down, like, but I know kind of broadly where we're moving towards. I do like, but like I know from a marketing perspective, even when I started my Instagram and like had a couple of clients, like there's no great secrets there. Like if you can communicate a message well, like, and understand who you're communicating it to, like you're going to have success. So like that was it for me in the beginning. It's I'm not even saying I need to have X amount of followers or anything, or I didn't even understand the value of Instagram that much, but I still knew, like, right, if I put up good work, I do know, but I definitely do know. People don't know, people still don't know, but like Instagram is a powerful thing. Whatever listeners are thinking, multiply by 10 in your head, and now you might start to understand how powerful it is. But just communicating your message well, like no matter what field you're in. And like I got a few clients from it in the beginning. I used to just have a client in with me in my dad's office that I turned into a clinic, which is too small for even what it was supposed to be. But like even just communicating to my initial clients 4 years ago, probably, to a few of them, like they would walk out of the clinic, forget about Instagram, but they would walk out of the clinic and I could have 3 people ring me within an hour that they've just referred. And I haven't, like, this is the first session with a client. I haven't made big improvements with them. It's just, we've worked on something. We've talked about where we're going to go with them. And they could have referred three friends on the way home, because no one ever talked to them properly before. No physio or masseuse or trainer ever actually said, here's what I think is going on, here's what we're going to actually work on over the next 6 weeks. I think it's going to take 6 weeks, and like, you're not going to make that much improvements today, but I want to understand this and this. And like suddenly they just start sending their friends. It's like, this talking stuff is important.
It's like, it's the most important. It's the stuff that Brett Bartholomew always talks about. Like, communication is just, it's everything. And it's the reason why people that probably aren't the best in terms of their practicality and their practice and as a practitioner or whatever, and they can still get clients in through the door because they can communicate what they're at least trying to do, I suppose. And you know what? Even if their program is dog shit and they communicate it well and the person buys into it, they'll probably get better results out of that than they will with the best program ever if it's not communicated well.
Yeah, maybe. Now, I'd argue with Brett on that, because he says that all the time. And I actually, I think people don't understand the negative transfer of training. There's very strong negative transfer of training. So people say all the time, oh, the worst program with buy-in is better than the best program with, and if someone half buys in, I'm like, nope. Because their body is moving worse and worse and worse every day, which is worse than doing no program. So when you're in my world, you see the negative transfer of training a lot more.
I think we understand it in Ireland a little bit more though, because of the GAA. And it's like, it's not even that they don't have the best interests at heart. They just throw too much at people. Yeah. So then like getting lads to relax, like, is the number one thing, getting them to optimize what they are doing, as vague as that sounds, but like, just make what you do good. Don't do loads. Like, we're playing next week and there's lads on to me, oh, we do a few extras or whatever. No, we don't need to do extras. We're playing on Friday. It's Monday. We're not going to get any better in 4 weeks. The only thing that will achieve a better outcome now, technical, I suppose, not even technical, tactical probably a little bit, and then just deload to hell and go in peaking like.
Just feel good, like,
just feel good, like, the whole way through the championship, and then hopefully it'll work out. And that, like, maybe I'm being too negative towards the GAA as well, and like, it's same thing happens in rugby and soccer as well, is that coaches don't understand the difference between high intensity and high volume. So the session goes on for an hour and a half, an hour and 40, and you just go loads, and that was a high intensity session. Well, no, it bleeding wasn't, because you can't have one and the other. You can't have them both together. They're mutually exclusive. But that is our fault as practitioners, I think, because it's our job to communicate it through to them. Now, I suppose, not in the past, because they were just doing what they had been done. Sure, that's the way we did it in my day. And it worked. We won 3 county finals out of that. So like, that's it. It's communication and education. And I might sound like I'm talking down or I'm having a laugh there as well, but that is it as well. You can't talk down to them. You have to explain it in a way that they'll understand and connect with them as well. And that's the important thing. But anyway, Graham Morris wanted me to ask you. Yeah, you're laughing already. He said, I think I'll kind of change the wording a little bit, but he wanted me to ask you what it's like being David Grey Rehab. Now, after just being David Grey 2 years ago. Now, he put it slightly differently, as you can imagine.
I ask him what it's like being Graham Morris. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's the same. What's it like being Petey Performance?
I don't know. It's a slog. How I would make that a little bit, or verbalize that, I suppose, is, how has life changed for you since the rollout of lower body basics?
It hasn't, like, like, we live in a small house that we live in. Kira's mom's house is there, and we converted stables into a small 1-bed. So there's a bedroom, a kitchen, a living room together, and a bathroom and a little pantry room. And we live there. I still do the same work as I did effectively. I actually probably work more than I did. We have a nice gym and stuff now. I have a nicer car now. Like, I still do the same thing every day. I appreciate very simple things, which is going for a coffee, having a walk, doing a little bit of work that I enjoy. What's changed in the last couple of years is probably more to do with COVID rather than my business, but it's taught me that I need to, I started to look to the future more, I suppose. Which not in a bad way, maybe in a bad way, some people would say, but I've started to look to the future, and I've started to move my perspective from, like, okay, I'm me, I'm doing this and that, versus like, okay, at some point in the future, like, even now people rely on me a bit more, and at some point in the future, more people, maybe a family and stuff, is going to rely on me. So I've kind of shifted my perspective more towards that, which has made me a little bit more aware of the financial side of things, and a little bit more aware of, like, the longer term business side of things and things like that. Because a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I could have just woke up one morning and said, right, I actually want to move country and live somewhere else now. Whereas I'm not going to do that now. Like, I have it set up here and stuff like that. So
up to date.
Up to date. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I want to cultivate a great life for myself where I have a lot of free time or freedom. So that's like what I'm working on at the moment.
Do you ever give yourself a pat on the back and say, that was a significant moment? That was good. Well done, Dave.
I know there was good moments, and there is good moments, and I'm proud of what we've done. Like, I'm definitely proud of what we've done. But like, going back when we were talking about, like, my first few clients and stuff, like 4 years ago or whatever it was, and the messaging on Instagram and stuff like that. If that messaging wasn't getting through what I was saying back then, I would have maybe changed the way I was saying things, or changed how I communicate, or changed the medium, or whatever, but I wouldn't have changed my message. My message has been the same, and it will, I think, will always be the same, which is like, and people can agree with it or disagree with it, I don't mind, but like, this is how I think things should be done roughly, and these are the things that I think work, and I've never changed that. So I would not have changed my message. I would not change my message now if you offered me 1 million followers. I wouldn't have changed it then if I've said the same things all along. So like, I'm proud that our work has had a big impact on people, and I've obviously, a lot of people have had a big impact on me over my career and stuff like that. And I'm proud. I'm mostly lucky that I met those people, but I'm proud of myself that I have the ability, for some reason, maybe it is still luck, but I seem to have the ability to pick, to read people well and understand, right, who's smart, who's actually doing good things here, and learn from them people versus who's talking crap. And maybe I have made mistakes with people in the past, but I'm proud and lucky that I have learned from a lot of smart people, and I'm proud that I have not changed my message, because I'm mostly proud that we get results with people. We actually help people. That's what I'm proud of. Like,
would you probably make that change, or make that significant change, because of your authenticity as well? So like, if you had sacrificed that and just were searching for followers and doing David Gray giveaways with a pair of AirPods and fulfill bars or whatever, then like, you wouldn't have been in it for the right reasons, I suppose. And that's the same thing, as you said, with connecting with people that you believe are doing it for the right reasons. I'd say it's more a morally correct kind of standpoint, I suppose, and having the best interest of their clients and the industry at heart too, and actually making a change. But the turnover of that, I suppose, is those are the people that do make the most significant change, because they're actually doing it for the right reasons. It's the other people that might have to just have a constant turnover of clients that they're taking advantage of. I guess that's not sustainable. So they're going to have to stay in that loop forever, stay in that overreaching period that we were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I had a guy, I remember about 12 months ago, a guy was on my Instagram commenting, like, abusing me, saying, oh, you're talking about biomechanics or whatever, you're trying to make clients dependent on you by talking about this stuff. So I was like, firstly, you just don't know what kind of work we do at all, and secondly, I'm not even taking clients at the moment. I don't want clients. I'm trying to send clients elsewhere. Like, I'm not trying to build any dependency. So like, yeah, my message hasn't changed. I don't think it will change. As if, like, we put movement quality at the center of the world here. Like, and no, we don't. We put movement quantity at the center of the world. So making sure you're moving enough, firstly, and movement quality is inside of that, and then everything else is out around that. And I think too many people put strength above even movement quantity or quality, and like, it's just strength, and then I'm willing to sacrifice everything else for strength. And I'm like, no, like, strength is a skill, and so is everything else here, and movement quality for an athlete is the most important, and movement quantity for Gen Pop is the most important, like, that they're actually just moving enough and not sitting on the couch all day. And we put such an emphasis on both of those things, more so movement quality, because that's our niche, I suppose, where like a lot of people are talking about like getting your steps in and all of that stuff, and people do that better than me. But we just talk about movement quality, and I think we can make changes with people, and I think we can make people move better and ultimately feel a lot better.
Strength can be a bit of a cop-out as well, like, because you can improve it so, well, not so quickly, but it is fairly easy to improve. Like, we all know how to do it because it's been done since the 50s. Like, so from a practitioner perspective, like, if you say we're losing, oh, it's because we're not strong enough, it's probably not. Even if it's not in a team sport, it's not because you're not strong enough, but a lot of the time it could be down to how you're moving, and the quality of your movement. Now, that's in an individual on an individual level as well as on a team level. So how players are moving off each other and moving to space and creating space, but that's not your bag. Well, not anymore. It used to be when you were playing football, I suppose. But that's the difficulty as well, because with a lot of those things, it can be hard for people that aren't looking at it every day to see the differences. So then they say, I didn't notice any change. So like you're talking out your arse, whereas you're not. Like, do you think the best sprint coaches in the world just look at the stopwatch all the time? No, they don't.
Rarely enough, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
More rare than people would think. Like, that's why I think track coaches are really cool. Like, because the stopwatch is there, and you can't, that stopwatch cannot lie. So like, you train someone for 6 months and they just got slower, unless they're in a period of overreaching or whatever, fine. But like, they got slower, like, you did a bad job.
Yeah.
but like if you, so should we be able to say to a strength coach, okay, I have 6 KPIs here in someone's movement, or 10 KPIs, and 10 is too many, 5 KPIs, and like, if some of those go up and some of those go down, have you done a good job? Maybe not, but like, the KPIs that people will tend to only look at is like, right, vertical jump, speed. But like, so you have to, there's a dilemma then. Are you willing to sacrifice joint health and range of motion for that increases in performance? Because there is a time when a body becomes more compressed and I start to sacrifice things. There is a time. It happens quickly or faster than people think. So that's why like exercise selection in the gym becomes so important, because you are moving people closer towards compression or not. And compression isn't a bad thing. I need to be able to compress, but if I compressed all the time, then I'm struggling. So yeah, so like, I do think, and people, when I talk about like passive range of motion and stuff like that, they're not, I don't want people to think they're arbitrary tests where like, oh, I'm just checking hip range of motion and like, okay, he has a healthy hip or not. It's telling you about the entire system when you look at someone's hips or their shoulders. Like, if someone can't adduct their hip, it means they literally can't get onto that leg in stance in gait, which means that their spine isn't experiencing that, their visual system isn't experiencing their peripheral vision on that side. There's so much more than like, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of hip range of motion to bring up my back squat. If you are, fine, but you have to be able to understand these things may have an interference with each other, but people don't tend to understand that.
And if you're a power lifter, that's great as well. But if you're playing something else, then you also have to be able to bring that rack and that barbell out onto the field with you as well. So that's probably not going to help you win the game.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very, very vague question now, but we could go down rabbit holes all day. But to put it in a digestible kind of way for people, what I wanted to ask you were, in relation to the following body parts or issues, would you be able to identify one common misconception and a principle that you've had a success in employing in that area? Okay. So the first one is your favorite. The first one is the glute. What
about the glute though?
Yeah, I'm leaving it open to you. The most common thing that people present with is the question. Which is incredibly vague, I know, so I apologize.
No, that's okay. So if you want to look at like with the glute, the first thing you should be thinking about is position and movement. So position of the pelvis, number one, so the glute is kind of sitting around there. And the movement of the hip joints, number two. So a glute, any muscle is only as good as like the movement of the bones, which does kind of change people's perspective, or is different to what people because you're taught in an anatomy class, like, okay, hip flexor flexes the hip. So the hip flexor is the thing that moves the bone. But like in a closed chain environment, then gravity is involved. In a dynamic environment, a lot of the time, Gary Ward talks about this, and it's not like cut or dry, it's not concentric or eccentric, but like the muscle activation is actually like slowing down joint movement rather than like accelerating joint movement kind of thing. So if you want to think about that in the glutes perspective, then hip flexion and internal rotation is gonna load the glute. And if I can't flex my hip very well, or I can't internally rotate my hip very well, I can do clam walks and stuff all day long, which is abduction and external rotation, but the glute fibers are actually never getting a stretch or length into them, so they're never getting a chance to contract and push me away. So most people who are struggling activating the glutes, or not even activating, that's not even a thing, but like getting really, but like they do struggle. People who say that, like, they do struggle to really get a good glute contraction or really use their glutes well. So that is the thing in that regard. But it's probably because they can't flex and internally rotate their hip and actually engage now, like not necessarily on the table, maybe, but and actually get length into the glute fibers. So like the glute max is the daddy. He's the guy you want to be going after. The clams and the band walks and stuff like that, they're not getting glute max. They're getting like some transverse plane fibers of the glute max, which is not even in a way that you wanted to get it. So it's terrible type of exercises with that regard to what you're trying to actually do, even though every exercise has some use at some point. Just with that regard, if you're trying to do that, it's not right. So that's what I would say about the glutes. So pelvic position and hip motion. In running, like two big things glute max is going to do is, like, if you look at someone running and they're not getting swing leg retraction, so in that late swing phase of gait, if that foot isn't coming back, kind of backing down towards the floor, what's backing down doing? So if the foot is coming back and down just before my foot hits the floor, what way is the hip going? Forward. Yeah. So that is hip extension. So that glute then is kind of extending, the hip is extending almost before the foot hits the floor relative to the foot. So if the foot is coming back, it means kind of the hip is almost moving forward in space relative to the foot. So now I'm getting tension into my glute max before my foot hits the floor. There's pre-tension there. And pre-tension is what we need when we're running, because when my foot hits the floor, there's it's too late for me to tension up the glute at that instance then, or any of the muscles. I need tension before my foot hits the floor. Not conscious tension, but this is the thing that the body does. And so my glute is tension, and I get that real active hip extension to push me off. So that's something. So running form, if you want to get the glute, need to actually be able to run well. That's why the best sprinters have the best looking glutes, because they run really well and the glute gets loaded. Whereas you can look at someone who runs every day for 10 years and it's like, they're all quads, there's no glute there. You can visually see, but when you watch them running, they just don't run very well. So that's one thing. And then another way, like, the glute becomes important is if I can't get that swing leg retraction. Let's say I'm a tennis player and I'm kind of lunging forward, or a footballer, I'm kind of lunging forward, that swing leg retraction isn't there. What you'll start to see is like this rapid internal rotation of the front hip instead. So the pelvis turns to that side. There's a reason for that. Franz Bosch talks about it. It's because if I can't get swing leg retraction and tension into the glute max via like a shortening, then I need to get internal rotation of that front hip so that the glute max will lengthen. And when it lengthens, then it's helping me overcome muscle slack. So it's getting tension via lengthening. So I either need to get swing leg retraction to protect my hip and my body, my lower back, or I need to get flexion and internal rotation. So two ways the glute max is going to load very much in athletic endeavors.
And a point on that is, a lot of people, when they hear David's name, they'll think Dave works with people that are coming back from injury or rehabbing injuries or dealing with pain. But everything that he said there also applies to performance, especially in sprinting, because when he's talking swing leg retraction and he's talking hip extension, he's also, as he said, talking about projection. So projecting the body forward. And if we can accelerate and project the body forward, guess what? We're going to get from A to B faster and more efficiently. So I know that's a deep dive on it for people, but like now we've spoke a little bit on hip extension and projection. The next point that your other favorite, if you even have a favorite, I've just pulled this out of my arse as well, but the hamstring.
Yeah. But just go back to that for a second, Pete. With the, like, if we did, it is a deep dive there. Kind of, maybe I went too complex, but like, I think people should understand that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if we're talking about glutes and we're going to say your glutes aren't activating, or you don't move very well, or like your glutes need to be stronger, what does that mean? Like, like try and have some kind of understanding of the functional anatomy and the biomechanics. And you don't need to be like super fancy about it. And it's definitely not, a podcast probably isn't the place to learn it, because it's much easier to see it. But this stuff is simple. It's just, you need to just learn to see it, take your time, and you understand what the muscle is doing then.
And I think as well, though, Dave, the majority of people that listen to the podcast will understand what you're talking about, but I'm conscious of probably about the 20% that don't even know what their glute max is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
100%. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I know. I'm the same. I'm always trying to be conscious of, I don't want to sound like I'm throwing out terms or anything for the sake of it. But coaches should understand that.
Yeah,
stuff,
100%.
like, or seek to understand it, like definitely. Not that I'm great at understanding it or anything, but like there's people out there that are unbelievable. But like, this is important stuff.
It's always difficult though as well, though, in a podcast, because you're actually talking to me and you know that I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But the podcast isn't for me, it's for the people listening. So that's the kind of the difficulty, I suppose, with it. So then something that I would notice as well is, because we're talking about position and we're talking about running mechanics and running form, a lot of the time with Gaelic footballers, this is a broadcast term as well, though, because when they're accelerating, typically they'll have their head up.
Yeah.
And this is a good kind of bleed into what the next body part I wanted to talk about. They're not going to be actually that good at accelerating forcefully. They're going to use really short, rapid steps with their head up. As you know what I'm touching on here, when their head is up, then they're more than likely going to go into an anterior tilt. And they're probably going to put a little bit more stress on the hamstring, even though it's not in acceleration typically, where they will run into their hamstring issues. But then that carries over to when they do get up to their max speed. They're still in that anterior pelvic tilt, because they haven't been taught the proper way. Well, not that there is a proper way to run, sorry, but they haven't been taught a better way, I suppose, or more efficient. So the next body part to talk about is the hamstring.
There is a proper way, kind of, though. There is, like, there kind of is. I know what you're saying, and there's not really a proper way. But when you look at all the fastest people in the world, so like, they run in a certain way. They do. Like, there's no doubt about it. They all look incredibly similar when they're running. You know, they all have different shapes and sizes and nuances and stuff like that. But none of them look like a GA player running. But none of them have to play a GA. You know, so maybe the GA player is running like that because how the game has developed. But the thing with complex sports like field-based sports where there is a ball involved, people's running form does not develop, because that's not the focus. And I don't mean that's not the focus of the coaches to focus on that. I mean, that's not the focus of the system, where the system has an intention and it's trying to learn something. And when there's a ball involved, it's trying to learn how to control the ball better. It's not trying to learn how to run more efficiently. Simple as that. And that's why, like, Franz Bosch talks about this as well. He talks about like professional soccer players who are some of the best in the world, and he trashes their running form, and he absolutely trashes it. And you could make the argument, like, look where they are, like, look how good they are, but he trashes it. He's like, they run like shit. They have very poor control of their body, because they're trying to control the ball, and they grew up trying to control the ball, and the system can't think about two things. Like, in that regard, it can't learn two things. So we can run better, and there kind of is a proper way, like, if we're really honest about it, like, you know.
Well, there's KPIs is probably the best
KPIs,
way.
There's markers, like, there is markers there, like.
But that's the argument as well, isn't it? Because they're like, well, sure, I'm not going to run in isolation when I'm on the field. There's going to be a ball involved, but The thing is, you can work on it in isolation and it will cross over into when there is a ball involved. And you can work on it in isolation and go more specific and start involving a ball in different aspects of the sport as you go. And then you're going to improve your performance. So that's the value of it.
Yeah, of course. They don't have to run like a sprinter on the field to sprint off the field, or learn how to sprint and actually be faster when they run, even if they're not copying the exact technical model that they're being taught. I used to think that. I used to be like, oh, well, like when they're playing GA, they're not going to be running upright as much like a sprinter does when they get up to max velocity. It doesn't matter. They're just running better anyway all the time. They're more efficient. They're probably a little bit faster. It doesn't matter. And they're being vaccinated from injury probably by actually just practicing sprinting. So, but with regards to hamstring, like just take two hamstrings, same person, me and my twin. No, not me, someone who can run fast, anyone, and their twin, and you put them in the room or put them on the field together, and every single other thing is the same with them, except one of them has more of an anterior tilt. Whose hamstring is stronger? The hamstring is the same strength, but whose hamstring is stronger?
So one has an anterior tilt.
More of an anterior tilt than the other.
Probably that guy.
No.
But he's going to put it through more stress, is my argument. So
right, okay. No, we're just talking about one day.
All right,
not over time.
Then the other guy for sure.
The other guy, yeah. Because when that leg swings through, the knee is straightening, like not straight, but it's straightening. That foot is swinging out in front. So distally, the distal hamstring is lengthening. Now I have a pelvis that just wants to dump forward. So the sit bone is moving backwards. So now proximally, the hamstring is lengthening. You don't want a muscle lengthening from two ends at the same time. It's just basic anatomy and biomechanics. That's why people who stretch, like stretching, that's why stretching feels disgusting, because people will try and stretch and lengthen both ends of the muscle at the same time. If they were smart, if they understood anatomy, they would stretch one end of the muscle and they'd feel really good. They go and lengthen both ends. No muscle and gait really lengthens at both ends at the same time. There's this give and take. One bone is kind of going one way, the other is following it. Now you have a hamstring that's lengthened from both ends at the same time. Maybe you didn't sleep well last night. Maybe you had a Chinese. Maybe you should have had a Chinese because your body likes Chinese, but you didn't. Maybe you had a salad, and maybe you had a row with your girlfriend, and maybe you trained too hard during the week, and now the muscle is lengthened at both ends at the same time. I'm not strong enough, and there it goes. So maybe if I did have that Chinese, the muscle could lengthen at both ends at the same time, and I would have been fine. So it's not a biomechanical thing necessarily, but if you put them twins on the pitch and one has more of an anterior tilt, that hamstring is under more stress.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Keenan and Kel. Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
But yeah, like that's it as well though. Like it's, I was going to say there when you said, oh, it never lengthens on both sides at the same time. And I was like, well, it does. And something happens when that happens. But like, yeah, that's it. Like if you're running constantly in that anterior tilt and you're able to tolerate that, then fair dues to you, but you're putting yourself at fair risk of that. And I would say we could name on one hand the amount of elite sprinters. One jumps to mind immediately that run like that. And there's a reason, because you're just putting such high stress through your hamstring. And it's funny because like, if you look across team sport athletes, almost all of them run like that.
Yeah, they do.
Now, but the other thing is that the anterior pelvic tilt is demonized, and we're probably doing it a little bit at the same time. People don't understand that you will go into somewhat of an anterior tilt at different times.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, your pelvis doesn't just stay fixed in that well, for some people it might, but it shouldn't stay fixed in one or the other all the time. Because when I say to lads, you're like, maybe I might be talking about the hips and they're saying, oh, what? So do I run like this? And they tuck their pelvis in and they're like running like Mr. Bean. And I'm like, well, no, like it's okay for a little amount of movement, but we want to be able to control it, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. It's just control. Like a lot of sprinters, top level sprinters, you'll see them like, and you see a lot of top level athletes, they're in extension, like their body is in extension their pelvis is in an anterior tilt or more anterior tilted than it is. Like it's more than neutral, but most people's is anyway. The difference is when they go and run, it doesn't continue to go further into the anterior tilt. That's what people don't understand. So they're like, they look at sprinters and they say, okay, look at the extension he's in, his chest is up a little bit. When they're sprinting, they're not going further and further and further into it, because that would demonstrate a lack of control, in my opinion. Whereas when you look at a lot of field sport athletes, the pelvis is going all over the place. And it's not that it's an anterior tilt or not, it's just a complete lack of control around like lumbopelvic control. They don't have it. So there's a really cool video of the Olympic champion, the Italian guy. There's a side-on video of him and it's kind of in a slow-mo. Just as I think it's actually from the relay when he passes out. I can't remember who they beat. He came from behind in the final leg of the relay in the Olympics, and like his pelvis, it's almost like his spine doesn't move. Like from the sagittal plane view, it's unbelievably stacked pelvis, and it's just hips that are driving, and there's no this big rock forward and back of the pelvis. But like you can cue athletes to do that all day long, but they just can't flex and extend their hips very well. So like the spine has to generate the motion then. But like that video of him was just so cool for me to see, versus the guy he bet beside him, and it's just so clear to see the differences in control. But like maybe the guy beside him, like there could be another video of the guy beside him beating him with the same running form. So like it's not cut and dry, but there is a model of movement that you need to have a framework that you're trying to move people towards, I think. Otherwise, nothing is off the cards. And then you fall into the trap of being one of these self-organization people who's like, they'll figure it out. Like, that's a big thing these days. Like, just give the athletes something, they'll figure it out. But like, they figure it out, but like their body isn't interested in being better and better. It just finds one way and keeps doing it that way.
Yeah.
And gets better at doing it that way.
It's okay to throw that at them initially, but then comes where you make your money and you come in and you coach. That's the job. Yeah. Like, it's coaching. Another point on that though, on like a lot of the time in those races, when you see one guy coming from behind to win and he's super controlled, you'll also see the guy that's ahead is conscious that this guy is coming from behind. So then he starts to try too hard. So he starts to push and he starts to contract rather than relax, which is another thing that we could go into a deep dive about. But like that, so then when he starts to contract, then he starts falling over and he starts going to shit is the best.
And imagine like when you think about it, obviously no matter who's there, no matter who's in 100-meter final, like they're obviously an unbelievable athlete, and they're obviously, or should mostly be like a PhD in their sport, as Dan Paff would say, or whatever. But and like they probably have a decent coach, let's be honest. Like it's hard to get in there, so they probably have a decent coach. And like how many times they would have been told, stay relaxed, don't panic, and they're telling themselves that for 4 years. The next thing you see a guy coming from behind and you're like, everything shit hits the fan. So like it's just so hard, like so hard. That's why teams as well, like
that's the fun of it though.
That's the fun of it until you're in that position at that time. That's why experience is so important. Like we've all played for teams that have not been so good at winning, and teams that maybe are, hopefully we play for teams that are better at winning. And like, just when you get into that winning position, or the shit hits the fan in a game and you're in a team that knows how to win, there's just a different feeling. There's not
a feeling of control.
It's control.
We can control this. We're still going to win. Like, we just have to keep doing what we're doing, rather than it's like they think scarcely, oh shit, they're coming from behind. But anyway, last thing I wanted to touch on, because I know the plyo program is coming.
It's not.
I don't know
where you got that from.
I thought the plyo program was coming after the upper body and the core basics. That's
maybe I said
I got the information from you. That's where did you get that from?
I don't know. I think it'd be too hard to write because it's
that's what I was going to say. It's so individualized, the amount of volume, like. So I was interested. I was going to ask you how you were going to manage that one.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I think in January I might write like a return to running type of program where it's like a couple of days in the gym and then plyometrics and stuff, and just put it for people who have not been running.
Yeah.
And return them to running, or maybe do a few phases or something like that. But a plyometric program would be too hard to write,
I think a big one on those running programs as well is just teaching people how to manage their load throughout a week or a bye week. Because we all know what happened during COVID. People were like, I used to run 5 kilometers a day. So then they go to do it at 7 days a week and they don't manage it. And they're like, why is my 5K not getting faster? Well, some of them might have got faster, but it's because you're in bits, mate, because you're going running the roads every day. And you're not very efficient at it, I suppose. But anyway, the last thing is quick fire questions then. So your first one is proudest achievement to date.
In what?
In any facet of life.
I don't know. I'm not good at reflecting on stuff. You know that.
That's why I asked you, Jerry, give yourself a pat in the back.
I'm not good at reflecting. Proudest. I did kick a win and score in a county final, senior county final, which I'm proud of in some ways, but I have also like a dirt nasty taste in my mouth because I could only come on as a sub because my body was a mess. So like I'm proud that I did that. That's probably my only proud moment in like
in a sport
that was frustrating. Like, you know,
what position did you play in football when you were playing?
I was I was a wing forward when I was fit, and then when I wasn't fit, I was like corner forward, which was most of my career, full forward. But I was not like, unfortunately, I was not. I completely changed my game in 12 months. You would have, like, people don't even remember the type of player I was because I played most of my career in a different way. But like, I was trying to work towards being like a very workman-like wing forward, where I was working really hard, wasn't particularly skillful, wasn't kicking many scores, anything like that. And then I destroyed my knee, could not do that anymore. So I went into corner forward, full forward, and within like 2 years I was a free taker on the team some of the time. And one of the most, I would say for 2 years, I wasn't a particularly good player, by the way, but I would say for 2 years I was one of the most accurate players in the county. Like, I hardly ever missed, because if I can't run anymore, I need to make sure that every time I get the ball, I'm either like setting up the score or scoring. And I just went and kicked frees on my own.
Did you go from hand or off the deck?
Hand.
Yeah.
Couldn't kick it well enough off I actually started practicing and my hip didn't like it at all. So
it's a lot of load.
Couldn't do it. It's a lot of load. Yeah. Especially because my technique wasn't good. So I was kind of like horsing the fucking thing. So like I just had to stop. So I was kicking out my hand and
not relaxed. Contracted.
Relaxed, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
and compressed.
So that's why I'm actually obsessed with skill development now more than anything else. I think I'm obsessed with skill development. And like, when I saw the change in how I could play the game and kick a ball and like go from like terrible kicking technique to fairly decent kicking technique and very, very accurate in the space of 3 months, like with practice. And now it frustrates the life out of me when I see a player now who cannot kick the ball, because I just know, like, there's some players in our club and stuff, and like they have qualities that I don't have, like, you know. So I'm not trying to say I'm better than them or anything like that. I'm not. Just can't solo the ball properly. Can't kick the ball. I'm just like, it's so frustrating. Like, if you went up with it, and the coaches will often say like, he's just not good at that or whatever. Yeah. Like, if they went up every day with the free taker and took frees with them, I guarantee you within 3 months they'd be kicking the ball really well. Even if it's not, they might never take frees, but when they get a chance to kick the ball, even a kick pass, they've kicked the ball 1,000 times in the last 3 months. It's going to be better.
They don't realize as well, like, how like how little cost it is to improve your skills as well. Like it's
Unbelievable.
tiny little bit every day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go in and you work on physical qualities, like there's only so much you can do before you have to take time to recover. Whereas like, because they're so energy efficient, the skill based stuff, like you can do loads of them and then you just get better from doing loads of them. But it has to be conscious as well. You can't just go up and fucking kick balls all day with poor technique, as you said, and then
if you're good, if you're shit, you can, because you do anything and you get better.
Yeah.
If you're good, it has to be conscious.
Yeah.
Because you've tapped out your beginner gains. But like, if you can't kick the ball at all as a footballer, you're terrible at kicking the ball. You go up every day. You don't even need a cue. You just go up and keep kicking, and like you will get better.
For 10 years there, you didn't need to kick the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You should get the solo at least.
Yeah, definitely. Next one is favorite athlete of all time.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, if you're Jordan on as well, I thought you were going to
say
that.
I actually do, yeah.
Especially when you were talking about
put on my branded thing, but I didn't.
Skill development and all that. I was like, he's definitely going to say Jordan. Favorite obscure footballer or footballing moment? You can go with your first love, which is soccer, I know, and your second love, which is Gaelic football.
I don't know. I don't have an obscure moment.
Do you have an obscure footballer that used to play with United that you love, like Eric Jemba?
No. Who would be an obscure player for Man United? I don't know.
Quinton Fortune. I'll go all day.
No, like there's some bad players, like. But then again, they're probably not. They probably just weren't good enough for United. But no. I'm just going to take a footballing moment.
Yeah.
Not an obscure one. Just think of Wayne Rooney's bicycle kick against Man City. Unbelievable.
Perfection. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's some moment. That I can, like, I'm not a massive football fan around, like, but I can remember sitting on my couch and that he scored that goal, and I remember standing up and sprinting around the house and just screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, imagine how he must have felt to score that goal.
He probably didn't care though as well, because he's Wayne Rooney. So
but he did care. He went screaming like to the corner flag. It was against City. I think there was talk of him joining City the year before or something, if I have my timeline right. But like, just to score that goal, that's going to go down as one of the best goals ever scored.
Mate, he scored some peaches though as well. Like, goals, and that's talk about a genius that like didn't have to think about what he was doing. Like, it was just playing on instinct. But anyway,
that's practice.
That's practice. Yeah, that's practice. And that's
his entire life just playing football.
That's what Keir was talking about, his goal against Newcastle, where he volleyed it and they asked him, what were you thinking? He said, kick the ball really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But like to think about if you wanted to like kind of break it down in some ways, to think about how his body had to organize to do that, like the local intra and intermuscular coordination and the things that all have to go right for him to do that. It's sick. But
he'd done it before. He'd done it before. That's why he could do it. Like, so that's it. That's the whole, I suppose, the why behind the podcast. Do more things, you get better at more things, or do one thing and do it a lot and you'll get better at it. Artists you've been listening to a lot recently?
On holidays, I went back to some old school Kanye.
Yeah.
Like College Dropout and them type of albums. Like, you could literally listen to maybe three of his albums in a row without skipping a song, probably. Yeah.
And very different as well. Like the progression there, I don't know where he's going with that now, to be honest. But look, he's Kanye, he can do what he wants. Who's playing you in the movie?
Be some shit movie. It's a terrible movie.
At the house of Waterford in front of the laptop.
Nicolas Cage or someone, I don't know.
He'd do good. He'd do outside the box.
Someone shit, like, I don't know, him or Keanu Reeves or someone shit like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you're in front of the computer, it could be kind of a Matrix. And David Gray cracks the Matrix of online selling of programs, online marketing.
Terrible movie.
Books you've been reading lately?
I finished Peter Thiel's one, 0 to 1. That's a recommendation from Kier. I think I read it a few years ago, and I didn't like it, but I actually have kind of fresh eyes on business side of things now. So I thought that was quite good. Books annoy me sometimes. Like there's too big. Like I like a small book. Too much. You're saying the same thing again and again, but like he did have some nice lessons in it. That was good. I'm reading one called Story Brand now. I just send out to my newsletter every month like what I'm going to read, and I just ordered that sports book as well. That new one. What's it called? That one with is it high performance training for sports or something like that. So I just ordered that, but only for probably the John Kiley chapter and Dan Paff, I think has there. That's a nice book like to probably have on your bookshelf.
You won't read that like a book though. You'll go in and
I don't read many books, like especially not books on like the industry books. I don't read them like that.
Can be hard to digest them again and again and again, like and they just keep coming out as well. No,
I don't really learn well.
Learn from doing, like you said earlier.
I think so, and like I prefer probably listening to a podcast or I don't know.
Audiobooks are great. That 0 to 1, I got that on audiobook and I had it done in like a week. I think it was just like so easy to digest as well.
I'm going to get back into audiobooks, I think, because I'm making a conscious effort now for this month I just want to see what my body does when I walk a lot more. I'm going to try and get like maybe at least 12,000 steps a day if I can, type of thing. Just want to see what happens. And
Roxy's going to be happy about that.
Roxy be buzzing, and so I'll get on some audiobooks.
What's the biggest thing you've learned in the last 12 months?
Probably learned a lot. Biggest thing would be probably business lessons and stuff like that. Like I've learned from looking at people that like adaptable people are the people that like do well in life. I'm pretty sure that if you took away my job from me and everything else, I'd probably be fine. I'd figure it out. Like, and I can see that with people in pain and stuff like that. Like if you want to strip away the biomechanics of everything and say, just give someone who's in pain something different, something that they're not doing, or take away something that they've been doing. Just give their body, even if you think like I'm moving them biomechanically into a worse place, which is like, okay, I think the way they do these movements are having an impact. I'm going to push them further into those movements, or like give them more anterior tilt, or like, not that I'm saying this is related with pain, but like just for an example, give them more anterior tilt. Just give them some kind of ability to adapt and reference something new. So I think adaptability has become not a lesson, but just how important it is. So we've kind of diversified our income streams and all of that stuff. Like we have a membership side. I have 2 physios that are doing online sessions. I'm doing some still myself. We've programs. So like even if 12 months ago, let's say 100% of my revenue was still the same as it is today, but today then it's like 5 different streams that are generating that rather than one, and that's a much more, I think, anti-fragile place to be.
Absolutely. Last one is, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh, jeez. I need 10 Zoom calls. I don't know, like realistically, like would you tell him that? And I don't know, probably not, like, but what would I tell him? I'd love to tell him, like, I don't know, because anything, like, if I would love to have had a different career in terms of sporting wise. Not that it ever would have been amazing, but I would love to have a different career sporting wise. I think I could have done a really good job, like if I did things right, and I would have loved that. But then that if I did, I wouldn't be where I am professionally now. So I don't know.
Okay, Dave, always a pleasure. Thanks a million for coming on. That was a great chat. Really enjoyed it. So, and I'll be chatting to you in the near future again, I'm sure.
Thanks, Peter.